All right, everyone get ready, because today we are going deep into the minds of 4 to 6 year olds.
Sounds fun.
It is, listeners have sent in a bunch of research about this age range,
Oh, wow.
and let me tell you, just reading it, it's like watching a little scientist and comedian and philosopher all at the same time.
Yeah, those ages are just amazing.
It is. We're talking about that age where, why becomes like their favorite word, and every single thing is just a huge adventure.
Yeah, and their imagination just runs wild.
It does. It truly does.
It's fascinating how much development is crammed into those few years.
It is?
It's so much more than ABCs and 123s.
Yeah,
It's about building that foundation for how they think and learn and interact with the world.
it is. And speaking of thinking and learning, that's where we're going to start today.
Cool.
With the cognitive development that's going on in these busy little brains.
What's going on in there?
There is the source material mentions Dr. Maria Montessori.
Oh, interesting.
And I remember reading about her prepared environment concept. How does that tie into encouraging a child's natural curiosity at this age?
Well, Montessori believed that children learn best through hands-on exploration in an environment tailored to their developmental needs.
So it's not us telling them about the world,
No.
but giving them carefully chosen tools and activities that allow them to discover things themselves.
Exactly. So instead of just telling a child about the world,
Yeah.
you give them the tools to experience it for themselves.
So it's less about rote memorization
That's right.
and more about setting the stage for those aha moments.
Right, those little bursts of understanding
Yeah.
that come from figuring things out on their own.
On their own. And, thinking about that, my nephew is 5.
Okay.
And he is obsessed with building elaborate structures out of anything he can get his hands on.
It's like great.
Blocks, pillows,
Yeah.
boxes of cereal.
Wonderful.
Is that tapping into those same cognitive skills?
Absolutely. Building, whether it's with blocks or boxes,
Yeah.
is a fantastic way for children to develop spatial reasoning skills, which are crucial for understanding concepts like size and shape and distance.
Yeah.
It also involves planning, problem solving, and creativity,
Yeah.
all essential cognitive skills.
So those pillow forts that are constantly being built in my living room are not just a mess, but
Yeah.
it's actually architecture school in disguise.
Precisely. And don't forget about the power of pretend play.
Oh, yeah.
When children engage in imaginative play,
Right.
they're not just having fun.
Oh, no.
They're exercising their working memory,
Really?
practicing language skills, and developing their executive function, which is like the brain's air traffic control system.
Now, you mentioned executive function.
Yes.
And that's a term I've come across in the research, but never fully grasped.
Okay.
Could you unpack that a bit more?
Sure.
What does that look like in a 4 or 5-year-old?
So think of executive function as the mental processes that help us plan,
Okay.
focus, control impulses, and juggle multiple tasks. It's like the conductor of an orchestra,
Okay.
making sure all the different parts of the brain are working together harmoniously.
No.
And in young children, you'll see executive function developing as they learn to follow rules, wait their turn, and resist distractions.
So those epic meltdowns when they don't get their way,
Yeah,
are those partly due to their executive functions still being under construction?
that's a part of it, yes. Their emotional regulation is also still developing,
Okay.
which is why they can swing from joy to frustration so quickly.
That makes sense. It's like their brains are working overtime
Yeah.
to process all this new information, master new skills, and make sense of their emotions.
Yeah, they're busy.
They are. No wonder they need a good night's sleep.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, the source material mentions Dr. Sears and his emphasis on physical activity.
Yes.
How does that tie into brain development?
Well, Dr. Sears, like many child development experts, emphasizes the importance of physical activity for overall well-being,
Right.
and that includes brain development.
Okay.
When children move their bodies, they're not just building muscles and improving coordination.
Yeah.
They're also stimulating brain growth and enhancing cognitive function.
So running around isn't just about burning off energy.
Right.
It's actually helping those little synapses fire.
Exactly. Think of it this way. The brain is like a muscle, and physical activity is like a workout for the brain.
Yeah.
It helps improve blood flow, oxygenation, and the growth of new brain cells.
Wow.
It also strengthens those all-important neural connections,
Okay.
which are essential for learning, memory, and attention.
All right, parents, take note.
Take note.
Those playground trips and backyard adventures aren't just about tiring them out for bedtime.
Nope.
They're actually boosting brain power.
Exactly.
Now, we've talked about the big picture cognitive development, the importance of movement.
Yes.
Let's zoom in on some specific physical milestones that emerged during this stage.
Okay.
We're talking gross motor skills, running, jumping, climbing the works.
You'll notice a remarkable transformation in their coordination and agility during these years.
Yeah.
They'll go from stumbling toddlers to little athletes
It's true.
who can run, jump, climb, and even skip and hop with increasing confidence and grace.
It's like watching a tiny human unlock a whole new set of superpowers.
That's a great way to put it.
I remember seeing my niece skip for the first time, and it was like she discovered this magical new way to move through the world.
It's those moments of pure joy and accomplishment that make this age so delightful to observe.
They are.
And while it's tempting to focus on those big, impressive movements,
Right.
it's important to remember that fine motor skills are also undergoing a major refinement during this period.
Right, because holding a pencil isn't just about scribbling.
No.
It's about developing the dexterity needed for writing, drawing, and all sorts of other essential skills.
Exactly. Think about the precision required to button a shirt,
Yeah.
use scissors, or manipulate small objects.
Oh,
These are all fine motor skills that are crucial for independence and school readiness.
so how can parents encourage both types of motor skills? The gross and the fine.
Yeah.
I mean, besides just letting them loose in a playground, which is
Right.
always a good idea.
Always a good idea. Playing ball is fantastic for hand-eye coordination and gross motor development.
Okay.
Skipping rope is another great one.
Yeah.
And for fine motor skills, think about activities like crafts, Play-Doh, or even helping with simple tasks around the house, like buttoning clothes or setting the table.
I love that, making everyday activities part of their development.
Yes.
So those chores aren't just about teaching responsibility.
Right.
They're actually mini boot camps for those tiny muscles and growing brains.
Precisely. And as you observe your child engaging in these activities,
Yeah.
you'll start to notice a fascinating connection between their physical abilities and their emotional and social development.
Now that's an interesting transition. We're moving from those busy little bodies to those big, sometimes overwhelming emotions.
Big emotions.
What's going on in the emotional landscape of a 4 to 6-year-old?
This is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Between the ages of 4 and 6,
Yeah.
children start grappling with some pretty big questions like, who am I? And how do I fit in?
Oh, wow.
They're developing a sense of self, forming their own identity.
Yeah.
And that's where the foundation of self-esteem starts to solidify.
It's like they're figuring out their place in the world,
Yeah.
their own unique personality, and how they relate to everyone else.
Exactly. And as they navigate this process of self-discovery, their emotions can be pretty intense.
Oh, yeah.
They're becoming more adept at expressing their feelings,
Okay.
whether it's happiness, sadness, frustration, or anger.
Okay, so how do we as caring adults help them navigate this roller coaster of emotion?
That's a great question.
I mean, sometimes it feels like I'm speaking a different language when my nephew is having a meltdown. Any tips for decoding those emotional outbursts?
One of the most valuable things you can do is help them identify and label their emotions.
Okay.
Instead of dismissing their feelings or telling them to calm down,
Right.
try saying something like, I see you're upset. Would you like to talk about what made you feel this way?
That makes sense. It's like giving them the words to express those big feelings they're experiencing.
Exactly.
But what about when those feelings lead to behaviors that aren't okay,
Yeah.
like hitting or yelling?
Uh-huh.
How do we navigate discipline at this age?
Discipline at this age is less about punishment and more about teaching and guiding.
Okay.
It's about helping them understand the difference between acceptable and unacceptable behavior
Right.
and giving them the tools to make better choices.
So instead of just saying no or resorting to timeouts,
Right.
it's about explaining why certain behaviors aren't okay and offering alternatives.
Exactly. For example, if your child is hitting their sibling,
Yeah.
instead of just saying, don't hit, you could say, I know you're angry, but hitting hurts. How about we try using our words to tell your sibling how you're feeling?
That's a much more constructive approach. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
you're teaching them a new skill, emotional regulation and conflict resolution,
Yes.
instead of just shutting down the behavior.
Precisely. And consistency is key.
Okay.
Children thrive on predictability.
Right.
So make sure you're setting clear expectations and following through with consequences in a calm and consistent manner.
So no empty threats or constantly changing the rules.
No empty threats.
Got it. Now, speaking of social interactions,
Okay.
this is also a time when sharing and cooperation become really important.
Absolutely. They're starting to form genuine friendships and participate in group play,
Yeah.
which means they're learning to share, take turns,
Right.
and navigate social
I
dynamics.
get.
We often see a shift from parallel play,
Yeah.
where children play alongside each other but not necessarily together,
Right.
to more cooperative play, where they engage in shared activities and work together towards a common goal.
So those play dates and preschool experiences
Yeah,
are actually laying the foundation for kindergarten,
exactly.
where those social skills become even more crucial.
Absolutely. And while they're striving for independence,
Yeah.
wanting to do things on their own,
Right.
they still very much need guidance from their parents.
Of course.
Child psychologist Dr. Laura Markham beautifully captures this balance. Children at this age seek independence, but still need guidance from their parents.
It's like walking a tightrope, encouraging their independence while still providing that safety net of support.
Exactly.
And that support includes helping them develop those all-important language skills,
Yes.
which are exploding during this stage.
Exploding.
Okay, let's talk language.
Let's do it.
We know they're asking why about 1,000,000 times a day,
At least.
but what else is happening in their little linguistic worlds?
Their vocabulary is expanding rapidly,
It's incredible.
and they're starting to form longer, more complex sentences. Wow. They're becoming master storytellers, using language to express their thoughts, ideas,
Yeah.
and emotions with increasing sophistication.
It's like they're suddenly mini Shakespeares, weaving these elaborate tales with words they seem to be picking up out of thin air.
And remember those why questions we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Well, they're not just a sign of curiosity.
Okay.
They're also a reflection of their growing language skills.
Interesting.
They're using language to explore,
Ah.
to understand, and to engage with the world around them.
Speaking of engagement, what are some fun ways to help nurture those budding language skills?
Oh, there's so many.
I mean, besides, having endless conversations about dinosaurs and unicorns.
Of course.
It's basically my life right now.
Songs and rhymes are fantastic for language development.
Yeah.
The rhythm and repetition help them learn new words and sounds.
Yeah.
And it's just plain fun.
Totally. My nephew can't get enough of silly songs and rhymes.
It's the best.
And I have to admit, I find myself singing them long after he's gone home.
I do that too.
And of course, there's nothing quite like reading together.
Oh, the best.
Reading aloud to your child exposes them to new vocabulary,
Yes.
different sentence structures, and all sorts of wonderful worlds and ideas.
And it's such a great way to bond.
It is. Plus, it's just a lovely way to bond and create those special moments together.
It really is.
So it's a win-win, boosting language skills
Yeah.
and strengthening that parent-child connection.
Exactly. It's about creating a language-rich environment
Yeah.
where they feel encouraged to express themselves, to ask questions, and to explore the magic of words.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
We have.
From cognitive development to physical milestones to that emotional roller coaster and the explosion of language, it's pretty clear that this age is jam-packed with growth.
It is so much growth.
It truly is, and while it can be challenging at times, remember that you, as the parent, play a crucial role in supporting your child through all these incredible changes.
You really do. Welcome back to our exploration of the world of 4 to 6-year-olds.
It's great to be back.
As we delve deeper into this fascinating stage of development,
Okay.
I'm reminded of a quote by Jean Piaget, a renowned developmental psychologist. He said, "Play is the work of childhood."
Oh, I love that quote. It perfectly captures the essence of this age where learning and play are so intertwined.
Yeah.
We ended part 1 by touching on the importance of language development
Yeah.
and the role of parents in creating a language-rich environment.
Right.
And building on that foundation, one of the most valuable gifts you can give your child at this age is the gift of literacy.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's talk about reading. We all know it's important,
Yes.
but how can we make it more than just a bedtime routine?
Yeah.
How can we instill a genuine love of reading in our children?
Well, it starts with making reading a fun and engaging experience.
Okay.
Create a cozy reading nook, visit the library often,
Oh.
and let them choose books that pique their interest.
I remember as a kid, I loved going to the library and picking out my own books.
It's so fun.
It felt like an adventure.
Yeah.
And my parents always encouraged me to read whatever I wanted, even if it was the same book over and over again.
That's a great point. Repetition is actually beneficial for young children.
Really?
It helps them build fluency and comprehension skills.
Wow.
And don't be afraid to get silly with it. Make up voices, act out scenes and encourage them to ask questions.
It's like turning story time into a performance.
Exactly. And the best part is you don't need any fancy props or costumes.
Right.
Just your imagination and a good book.
And as they become more confident readers,
Yeah.
you can start introducing them to different genres and authors, expanding their literary horizons.
Exactly.
Now, we've talked a lot about the cognitive, physical, and language development that's happening during this stage.
Yes,
But what about social and emotional development?
that's important.
What are some of the key milestones and challenges in this area?
Well, between 4 and 6 children are developing a stronger sense of self.
Okay.
They're becoming more aware of their own feelings and the feelings of others.
It's like they're starting to understand that other people have their own thoughts and perspectives,
Right.
which can be both exciting and challenging.
Exactly. And as they navigate these complex social dynamics,
Yeah.
they're bound to encounter conflicts.
Oh, yeah. The conflicts from squabbles over toys to full-blown meltdowns.
Yes.
How can we help them develop those all-important conflict resolution skills?
First and foremost, it's important to model healthy conflict resolution ourselves.
Right.
Children learn by watching us.
Of course.
So when we disagree with our partner or a friend, it's an opportunity to show them how to communicate effectively and respectfully.
That's so true. I've definitely noticed that my nephew picks up on how we handle disagreements.
Uh-huh.
So it's like we're constantly under observation, no pressure.
Right. But it's not just about modeling good behavior.
Okay.
It's also about teaching them specific strategies for handling conflicts.
Like what?
Like using I statements, taking turns, and finding compromises.
So instead of just saying stop fighting,
Right.
we can guide them through the process of resolving the conflict themselves.
Exactly. And as they become more adept at handling disagreements,
Yeah.
they'll build their confidence and resilience,
Okay.
which are essential for navigating the social world.
Now, we talked about red flags to watch out for in part one, but are there any specific social or emotional behaviors that might indicate a need for professional support?
It's always a good idea to consult with a professional if you have any concerns.
Sure.
But some signs that might warrant further attention include persistent difficulty interacting with peers,
Okay.
excessive aggression or withdrawal,
Right.
and significant changes in mood or behavior.
So if we notice any of these red flags,
Yeah.
it's better to err on the side of caution and seek guidance from a specialist.
Absolutely. Early intervention is key.
Yes.
And there's no shame in asking for help.
Now, we've covered a lot of ground in terms of child development.
We have.
But I think it's important to acknowledge that parenting itself is also a journey of growth and learning.
I completely agree.
Parenting is a constant process of adaptation and evolution.
Yes.
We're learning alongside our children.
And sometimes it feels like we're making it up as we go along.
All the time.
That's perfectly normal.
Yeah.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach to parenting.
Of course.
What works for one child may not work for another.
Right.
And what worked yesterday may not work today.
Yeah. So flexibility is key.
Absolutely. And it's also important to be kind to ourselves.
Yeah.
We're all doing the best we can with the information and resources we have.
I think that's a really important message.
It
It's
is.
especially in today's world where there's so much pressure on parents to be perfect.
It's easy to get caught up in the comparison game,
It is.
but remember that every child and every family is unique.
Right.
There's no right or wrong way to parent,
Okay.
as long as you're providing a loving and supportive environment.
And speaking of a loving and supportive environment, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the role of parents in fostering a sense of security and well-being in their children.
Okay.
One of the most important things you can do is create a predictable and consistent routine.
Yes, we touched on this in part 1,
Right.
but it's worth emphasizing again.
Okay.
Routines provide a sense of stability and security,
Yeah.
especially for children who are still developing their emotional regulation skills.
So consistent bedtimes, meal times, and even playtime routines can help them feel grounded and safe.
Exactly. And it's not just about external routines.
Okay.
It's also about creating emotional routines.
What do you mean by emotional routines?
Things like having regular check-ins with your child,
Okay.
asking them about their day, and validating their feelings.
So it's about creating a space where they feel comfortable sharing their emotions, knowing that they'll be heard and understood.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And when children feel safe and secure,
Yeah.
they're more likely to thrive in all areas of their development.
Now, we talked about the importance of discipline earlier, but how does discipline fit into this framework of creating a loving and supportive environment?
Well, discipline should never be about punishment or control.
Okay.
It's about guiding your child towards making positive choices.
So it's less about saying no
Right.
and more about teaching them why certain behaviors are unacceptable and offering alternative ways to express their needs or feelings.
Exactly. And when you approach discipline from a place of love and understanding, it becomes less about control and more about connection.
That makes sense. It's about building a strong and healthy parent-child bond, where
Yes.
discipline is seen as a form of guidance and support.
Exactly. And that bond is the foundation for their emotional well-being, their social skills, and their overall development.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in part two, from the importance of reading and fostering a love of literacy,
Yeah.
to navigating social and emotional challenges, to creating a loving and supportive home environment.
It's a lot.
And as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with a thought-provoking question.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued. What's the question?
Think about the challenges and joys of parenting a 4 to 6-year-old.
There are plenty of both.
Yeah, imagine you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about parenting during this stage.
Okay.
What would it be?
That's a great question. I think my advice would be to embrace the messiness, celebrate the milestones,
Yeah.
and remember that it's a journey, not a race.
I love that. Embrace the messiness, celebrate the milestones, and remember, it's a journey, not a race.
Yes.
Words to live by.
Well said.
And on that note, we'll take a short break and come back for part three, where we'll delve into some of the unique challenges and joys of parenting during this incredible stage of development and leave you with some final thoughts to ponder.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We're in the final stretch of our exploration of the 4 to 6-year-old world, and I have to say, this has been quite a journey.
It really has. We've covered so much ground, from cognitive and physical development to social emotional growth and language acquisition. It's amazing how much is happening in these few short years. It's like they're little sponges soaking up everything around them.
And speaking of sponges, I think it's a fitting analogy for how we, as parents and caregivers, can approach this age.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How so?
Think about it. A sponge is soft and absorbent, but it also has a structure that allows it to hold its shape.
So are you saying we need to be both supportive and firm, like providing a framework for their development while also allowing them the freedom to explore?
Exactly. It's about finding that delicate balance
Mhm.
between guidance and independence, between setting limits and encouraging exploration.
And that balance can be tricky to navigate, right? Especially when you're dealing with a 4-year-old who's testing boundaries every chance they get.
It definitely can be, but remember, those boundary testing behaviors are a normal part of development.
So those epic tantrums in the grocery store aisle aren't necessarily a sign of bad parenting.
Not necessarily. It's more likely a sign that their emotional regulation skills are still developing and they're struggling to cope with frustration or disappointment.
Okay, so how can we help them navigate those big feelings without losing our own sanity in the process?
One of the most effective strategies is to validate their emotions. Let them know that it's okay to feel angry or frustrated, but that there are appropriate ways to express those feelings.
So instead of saying, don't cry or stop being so dramatic,
Right.
we can say something like, I understand that you're upset because you can't have that candy bar. It's okay to feel disappointed, but we can't always get what we want.
Exactly. By acknowledging their feelings, you're helping them develop emotional literacy, which is the ability to identify, understand, and manage their emotions.
And that's a skill that will serve them well throughout their lives.
Absolutely. Emotional intelligence is just as important as academic intelligence.
Now, speaking of academic intelligence, we talked about school readiness in part two.
Yes.
But what about those children who aren't quite ready for kindergarten? What are some alternatives that parents can consider?
There are many options available, including preschool programs, homeschooling, and even delaying kindergarten by a year.
So there's no need to rush them into something they're not developmentally ready for.
Exactly. Every child develops at their own pace, and it's important to respect that.
Now, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, the importance of play.
Yes, play is essential for development at this age. It's how children learn about the world, develop their social skills, and exercise their imaginations.
And it's also just plain fun.
Absolutely. Play should be joyful and engaging. It shouldn't feel like a chore.
So how can we encourage more playful learning in our children's lives?
Provide them with open-ended toys and materials like blocks, art supplies, and dress-up clothes.
Those are the classics.
And don't be afraid to let them get messy.
That's always a challenge for me. I'm a bit of a neat freak.
I understand. But remember, messiness is often a sign of creativity and exploration.
Okay, I'll try to embrace the chaos.
And another important tip is to create a designated play space.
So a corner of the living room or a playroom where they can let their imaginations run wild?
Exactly, and make sure it's a space where they feel safe and comfortable to explore.
Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with some final thoughts to ponder.
Please do.
Parenting a 4 to 6 year old can be challenging, but it's also incredibly rewarding. It's a time of immense growth and discovery, both for the child and for the parent.
Couldn't agree more.
Mm.
It's a journey that's filled with ups and downs, but it's ultimately a privilege to witness these amazing little humans blossom into their own unique selves.
So true. And remember, there's no one right way to parent. Trust your instincts, seek support when you need it, and most importantly, enjoy the adventure.
Well said.
And that concludes our deep dive into the world of 4 to 6 year olds. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and feel inspired to continue exploring this fascinating stage of development. Until next time, happy parenting.